Hi, I want to show you how to program IP camera, and this will be a live example. So I have one IP camera on my home network, and I open the browser Chrome, and in that browser we'll type the IP address of the camera. So basically you do exactly the same, just obviously it will be your IP address. So as you can see, I have already tried that, and we wait for the, and that's the login of the page of the IP camera. It will be slightly different from different camera makes. This is IC real-time camera. That's every camera like that will look on the IC real-time, more or less. Obviously some software versions may change. Also, IC real-time NVRs will look very similar. So we have a login admin, and we type our password. Now, once we do that, we can log in, and we get a live view from our camera. Okay, that's our live view. That's our date, time, and there's a substream. I hope should be smaller. Okay, because I have different settings. So I just basically have a camera on my window looking through the window. That's why you have those reflections there, because it's just reflections on the glass of the window. Somebody is obviously doing some laundry here, trying. What I want to show you, okay, so this is mainstream. When you log into any camera, you should get something like that: mainstream, substream. That's a live view. Now, what we want to go to, settings, and let's see what we have in settings, what sort of settings we can do. So as you can see, we have conditions. So you have picture, exposure, backlight, day and light, infrared light. As you can see, it's all more or less in the middle. I never changed that in that camera. I just leave that alone unless I need it to be changed because of some situation there. Sometimes camera gets old and you have to increase the brightness or contrast or something like that, or sharpen the picture. Profile management, we can leave that alone. This what is very interesting, that camera is zoom and focus, and I tell you why. Because this is varifocal lens camera, meaning we can zoom in and zoom out. So at the moment that's the zoom in version. So you can do this basically live. So you set up your camera on a pole or somewhere, and you go to your comms room, you connect from your laptop to the camera, and you log into the camera as I did. Now let's zoom out a little bit. So we're moving this, let's say, to the maximum. Let's see what happens. Okay, we see some even parts of my window, some stuff is lying there, some boxes which I put in there. So that's a maximum zoom out, and you see camera is focusing automatically. So let's zoom in again. We don't want to look at this window. We don't have to look at the window. Okay, it's kind of adjusts itself to find the right focus. Okay. Let's go even farther. Okay, and again, camera will be looking for a focus. It's trying to lose the dirt on the glass of the window. Let's hope it will. Okay, perfect. See, and I found the path, and it works. So let's go further. Okay, excellent. Very quickly found the. Let's go even closer. or we can just do that. Oh, there was a bird or something flying. Okay, see, that's the maximum. So as you can see, it's a huge range on zoom in and zoom out. Let's go in the middle so you can see something actually. You can see there's a wind and so on. Okay, that's a zoom in and zoom out. In most of the cameras, if they are not varifocal don't have varifocal lenses, obviously you won't be able to zoom in, zoom out. All you will have just a still picture, not still, sorry, but just one focal length which you will be using. Okay, so we have this, we have conditions which we already went through. Let's go to video section, and that's interesting here. So you can see we can enable substream. If you remember from my from what I said, you can the mainstream is for recording on your DVR and VR, and a substream is for streaming that camera to something else. And DVR, or sorry, NVR in that case will be taking both streams, and then he can send substream, for instance, to some external device. So let's see what the settings I have. As you can see, I have the minimum resolution. Honestly, I was trying to set high resolution, but for some reasons on that browser on my computer it wouldn't work. So I won't be even trying to switch to high resolutions. This is basically what we have here. This is 1 megapixel, 2 megapixels. We have to multiply that, definitely above the 3 megapixels, but I couldn't make it work on that computer, so let's leave it alone. So what else? That's a bitrate, and usually it should be set to constant. C is constant, V is variable. So it should be set to constant, and we should have something around 2000. Actually, no, for this, no, I don't remember now. Yeah, but possibly like 2000, make it safe. And we have 15 frames per second. So let's go back to live, see if everything is working. Oh, still handling, okay. We can also, as you can see, it's 15 frames per second, and you can see those winds moving the bushes pretty nicely. And you can, if we go now back there and change it to, come on, change it to 25. That's basically 25, 30. It's a movie quality. Okay, so we do save, we go to live. It probably, in my opinion, you won't see really the difference. Let's see, the picture is jumping a little bit, probably. Maybe not. Maybe it was just a stronger wind. Seems to be slightly. Now there's a problem with transmission. You can see that it's moving, then stops, and it's jumping again. And the sun is going behind the clouds, so you see it's getting darker. But what I wanted to show you, so 25, we didn't see that much difference. I don't think there's a problem with transmission. Let's go to 10, save. I want to show for you to see that difference in the frame rates. So as I was telling the course, there's not much difference between oh, there's somebody walking there. There's not much difference. You see it's freezing, kind of seems to be freezing. I don't want to go into that. It's maybe down to the frame rate, so the bit rate. But let's go again here. Okay, it's constant. This is 1280. Okay, it's apparently it's adjusting itself. Let's go to 5 frames per second. See, the bitrate is automatically adjusting. So if I go to 20, it's automatically finding what it needs. It's not in every camera like that. See, that's the 25. And let's go back to 5 frames per second. Save. And let's see if there's a big difference how the picture behaves. And you can see, yeah, there's a difference, especially when you look at somebody walking. Let's see if I can. Okay, we could zoom in and zoom out on this picture also, but you can see there are breaks in this transmission, like so there's a movement and then there's no movement. It would be better visible if there would be movement in one direction. It's hard to see on moving trees, but they seem to be not natural, kind of. See this one? We could zoom in on that on that big one here. See how much we can get. See the movement is kind of unnatural. There are clearly breaks in that movement, so it moves and then stops and then moves again. But if you would go to proper, so let's say at least 15, this should improve. Yeah, it's hard to see because the wind stopped actually at the moment. Well, seems to be much more fluent. It will be very well visible if you would look at the walking person, or more than one person. Okay, let's go to other elements. I'm going to move it back. See something else, maybe a little bit. Bush, right? Yes, too far. I want to see that. Okay, I want to see this moving bush nicely. So let's go back to settings again. This depends on your camera also. So you have 3 options here. This is the most common type of compression, as you remember from one of my lessons. This is slightly better. And this is 265. It's bigger compression, requires, if you look here, so we have 15 frames and it requires 768. Yeah, let's go back here. This will give you exact example how much you can save with different type of compression. So you have H264 and it gives you 1500 bitrate required. It's kilobyte per second. If you go to this one, there is no change. But if you go to 265, it goes basically half of 264. There is also 265 plus, but it's not available on that camera. So you can see with this, you're getting much better bitrate. So you need to send less traffic to see with that compression. If we do save, let's see if there's some visible difference on the camera itself. Let's assume that it can play. It can, okay. Yeah, there was something went through the screen very quickly. I haven't noticed what. But if I look at this, it seems to be moving nicely and fluently, and there's no visible for me difference. But as I said, the best way is to look at the moving person, then you will see especially for frames. So let's go back here. So that's the best compression. You can see we could save so much. If the same happens as you remember when we change frames, So we go to, let's say, 25. So we have 768 for 15 frames per second. Come on, let's go to 25, and you get 1000. So it's increasing. If you go below 15 was 768. If you go to 10, it's not much difference. You can see that you cannot save that much. Oh, now it's jumped. You have to try different settings, you know. 8, no difference. 9, there's difference. Okay, so that's where the difference was made. But anyway, settings 15 frames per second is pretty typical and very common. Okay, so we have that. So these are your video settings in the camera. You basically set around something around that. Resolution which can be which is available in that camera and in the NVR, and the same with the compression, because NVR also has to be able to handle both of them for you to set it that way. Okay, let's save it. Another settings which will be playing a lot is network, and you're going to TCP IP, and you can see straight away that's our IP address, that's your mask, that's the default gateway, which is my router at home, and you have the DNS settings, which I also have a lesson about in that course. Now there's a lot of different settings. We won't be going to them because they're, let's call it, the advanced. Okay, you don't need them at the moment. With typical settings of your IP system, you don't worry about it. Only you will start worrying about other things when you want to connect additional computers from the outside of the system. Then you may need one of those. Okay, ports. As I said in some of the lessons, usually NVR and camera will have some standard ports set up. Here you have maximum connection, so 10 devices can connect at the same time. Excuse me, at the same time to the camera. TCP port and UDP. I didn't explain in my lessons what is TCP, what is UDP. Basically, TCP is the most typical for any communication over internet when you're sending information and then you require confirmation that information was received. So if you send an email, this will be using TCP. A lot of video transmission could be a UDP, where you're basically sending the video, but you're not requiring confirmation that the video was received. This could be, for instance, like streaming movies or something like that. That's basically, and there are typical ports used for that. And usually, if you go to NVR, it will be exactly the same ports for that. HTTP, I mentioned that in my lessons. It's a port for the HTTP access, and that's exactly what we did. We went to the browser, we typed the IP address, and it doesn't display that, but the port, their browser automatically is set for port 80. If we would be using, see that says not secure, which means it's not using HTTPS. If we would be using HTTPS, we would have this port. RTSP port is the port for the online streaming. That's the one of the formats of the online streaming which can be used. So these are your ports. What else we can go? There's no storage. See, you could have a recording and stuff set there. You can go to some local hard drive and so on. You can basically tell the camera where to go, where to send the picture. See, there's no local, because some of the cameras, see, there's another thing which I didn't say in the course. Some cameras may have SD cards and may record locally. This is through FTP, so the camera would need so there should be some FTP server on the on the same network, and camera can send it. Let's leave it alone then. Typically, you're not setting any storage on the cameras. 99% of systems. Okay, system setup, general. Name, that's probably the camera. Language, video standard. In the US, obviously, will be not PAL, will be NTSC. NTSC. Account. There's only one account at the moment, but you can have multiple accounts. Group name is admin, admin meaning that's the highest level. And you can modify the password here. There's also something what's called OnVIF user, but in that same at the time it is exactly the same, but you can create separate OnVIF user. So when you basically when you log into the camera through the HTTP, but you can have also this OnVIF user. Safety. There's not much here. We won't be doing that. We can default the camera. If I default the camera, IP will be lost. And okay, so this will default without defaulting IP. This will default to factory IP also, and factory password. And I will do this in a moment. There's also a possibility of upgrading software, and there here we have information version. So it's it says what's the web version, system version, serial number of the camera, OnVIF version. What we will do, I will default this camera in this video, and then in another video I will install IP config tool for IC real-time cameras, and we will find on our network that camera, and we program that IP again for that camera. Thank you. Oh, sorry, no, maybe not thank you. I will do factory default. When I do that, what will happen, we will lose the connection with the camera, or it will freeze or something like that, because the password will change and IP will change. So I have to type my password. Save. Yeah, that says don't close the browser. It's yeah, but it may hang. We see the connecting, so it won't be able to connect because IP has changed. So it will basically end of that will be that it cannot connect or something like that. So there is no point of waiting. Yeah, the site can be reached. Yeah, see, and that's your IP address, default IP address of that camera. So most of the producers will have some sort of default IP address for their products, and for IC real-time that's the default address, and it cannot connect for the simple reason because our network doesn't have 1 here but 192 in this spot here, so it cannot connect, and it never will. As you remember from my lessons, if you want to connect to any device on the LAN, they must be in the same IP range. This IP range is different because we have 1 in this position instead of 192. So let's leave it alone. Let's close it now. Now I will close that, finish that lesson, and I will do lesson about the IC real-time tool.